let me piece yourself back together now. What's your vision?
Hey guys, I'm Mark Bridge, and welcome to another episode of the Pop Culture Galaxy Show. And today's episode, I'm going to do a deep dive into the Phase 4 announcement that Kevin Feige did at Comic-Con 2019. And boy, did he drop some bombs on us. Some of the stuff that we could there were rumors, and of course we already know what was being shot and what was being cast, so like some of them are not as big a surprise, but you know, some really shock and awed us, and unlike, I'm not gonna just like tell you what's coming out, what he announced that was coming out, but I'm gonna actually do a little bit of, you know, just diving in, you know, do some speculation, what it could mean for the MCU on a whole. But of course, you know, the first three phases was the Infinity Saga. And that started with Iron Man and ended with Spider-Man Far From Home. It had all the Infinity Stones. Thanos was the major bad on there. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Endgame or Far From Home. At the end of that, Captain America, he's old, he's retired, he passed the shield on to Anthony Mackie, Falcon, and Tony is dead, rest in peace. Spider-Man, his identity is revealed. But the stones as we know them in the Prime universe, in the universe that we've seen in the movies, those are still atoms disintegrated after Thanos kind of wiped them out. We found out that there are different universes via Endgame where because when you travel through time, it doesn't affect your timeline, it just creates a branching timeline. So, going forward, we're going to be dealing with a lot of that. So now Phase 4, is, because Phase 1 and Phase 2 both had 6 movies each, right? Phase 3 had the most movies. I think it had like 9 or something like that. But Phase 4 is back to not 6 movies, but 5. But it has just as many television shows on the Disney Plus channel. Now, when the MCU kind of just started after the Avengers, ABC put on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then Daredevil, and Netflix put on Daredevil and Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, The Punisher, The Defenders. And all of those television shows were supposed to be an extension of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's all connected was the tagline. And, but the problem with that is Marvel Television and Marvel Studios are two separate entities. And the flow just went one way. It was from the movies down to the TV. And nothing in the television shows affected the movies in any way. Except for one minor thing in Agent Carter, where that Jarvis showed up in Endgame, and a lot of people who didn't watch that show just said, "Oh, Jarvis was a human," but we all knew that if you watched Agent Carter. But it was a cool sort of Easter egg anyway. But then now, Disney Plus was announced. That's Disney's streaming service, and on Disney Plus you'll have like a big budget Star Wars show called The Mandalorian, and I think the Rogue One show with Andor, whatever his name is, that'll also be a streaming show as well. But Marvel announced a bunch of them. Well, initially they only announced Loki and WandaVision. There were rumors of Hawkeye and rumors of other shows as well. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That was actually announced. But we didn't know exactly. They said it would be integral to the MCU more than the other television shows were. But it could have been just like lip service, because they said the same thing about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it wasn't the case. But of course, with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like I mentioned earlier, that was only that was two separate companies. There's Marvel Television and Marvel Studios. But now Marvel Studios is producing both the movies and these TV shows. And boy, when I tell you that they are integral, right? So what do I think is the next saga they're putting up? So Phase 4 looks like it's only going to be 2 years. It's 2020 to 2021. Very short year, but it has just as many movies and television show, and if you combine it two, it has more than Phase 1 and Phase 2 when it comes to like initial entries into the phases, right? Now with with Infinity Saga, for most of the movies I kind of knew a lot about those characters. You know, I knew Iron Man, I knew Cap, I knew Hulk, Thor. And then when it came to Guardians, I read Guardians before the Guardians came out, and I was like, yo, I'm super excited. And then of course not a lot of people knew Guardians until it became a household name. Now I will say that for some of the characters and some of the properties that were announced in Phase 4, I'm not overly familiar with. So I won't pretend like, oh, I'm a master knowledge of everything comic book, everything that's Marvel, right? So some of these things are new to me. I have some of the stories ready to read, like Shang-Chi and the Eternals. I have like a bunch of Eternals sort of digitally ready to read. But like I said, like I'm not overly familiar with some of these properties. But I think this phase will, at least not just this phase, but this new saga, because I'm sure like Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6 will be another saga, and I think this is opening up the multiverse. You'll see a lot of these properties, and when I mention them, I'll talk about them. I'll show you how they sort of expand the multiverse universe. It's weird to say that, but I'll show you how they expand on that. And I think this saga is going to deal with the multiverse and the effects that the Infinity Saga had on the multiverse. All right, so the first movie this was the one that was announced last, but I'm just gonna start with it. So on May 1st, 2020, we will have Black Widow. Now, we found out when exactly Black Widow, because again, spoiler alert for Endgame, she dies. So we're like, okay, so she dies. Why do we care about a Black Widow solo film? And I still have some inkling that it's just gonna be more than just a mere prequel, but it could just be a prequel. But it's not taking place before all the movies that we've known. It's taking place after Civil War, before Infinity War, and it's right when Tony says, they're gonna come for you, after she kind of defies the whole Accords situation and said they're gonna come for you. And apparently her past is coming to bite her, and a lot of these cast members that I'll show you in a moment has to do with her past. Now, this movie is going to be directed by Kate Shortland. Another thing about this new phase is that there's a lot of newcomers to it, not just in front of the cameras, but behind the cameras as well. A lot of newcomers. Like, I've never seen any of these people's movies, but I'm still excited because the thing with Marvel is like they know they have the infrastructure to make big budget movies. They know that they don't have to worry about that. As long as you're coming with a vision, they're like, say, hey, if you want shit to blow up, don't worry about that. We have the people in the background to help you make shit blow up. All you got to do is just bring your kind of unique vision to it. So Kevin has been bringing a lot of indie filmmakers, and I think the other side to that is like, once you bring on a sort of a noob to the big budget, realm, even though they'll bring their sort of unique vision to it, they're not hard to work with. They're not, you won't get a Christopher Nolan, even though you never say never, but you won't get a Christopher Nolan or a Steven Spielberg or a Zack Snyder doing a Marvel movie, because like I said, it's like we want to be able to, it's a well-oiled machine. It's very producer driven, which is Kevin Feige. So he's like the totem pole, and a lot of these directors, they like to have final say in a lot of the projects they work on. So you'll see a lot of noob directors. So Kate Shortland, she's director of Black Widow. Also, a lot of diversity. You know, a lot of female directors, a lot of non-white people behind and in front of the scenes for this phase. As you'll see. So David Harbour from Stranger Things, you know him, and then he played as Hellboy in the movie. I haven't seen it yet, but it was a flop, and I heard it was crap. But he plays Alexei, who is Red Guardian. Not familiar with Red Guardian, but pretty much what I hear about him, he's basically the Russian Captain America. And David Harbour, he did say something on the panel where he was like, he has conflicted feelings about Captain America. But the thing with Captain, how much can they explore that? We'll never know, considering that Cap's retired. He's an old man now. But I'm sure. But seeing as this movie takes place after Civil War, hey, Chris Evans could show up in this. I won't put it past him to show up. He might have a cameo, like either in a post-credit scene, considering this is supposed to take place after Civil War and before Infinity War, and by the time Infinity War starts, Falcon and Cap and Natasha, they're pretty much a team. So you could see her meeting up with them. So I could potentially see a cameo from Steve. But yeah, but if you look at Red Guardian, he's like dieseled, and if you look at David Harbour, so I don't know. He's probably playing like a different version of Red Guardian. It doesn't have to be a 1-to-1 comparison. Next up on the cast list is Florence Pugh. You may know her from Fighting with My Family, the movie she did about Paige's life from the WWE, and of course Midsommar. You should check out Midsommar, man. That movie was really good. It's from the guy who directed Hereditary. It was, it's not as good as Hereditary, but it's really worth the watch. I would definitely say. But yeah, she's playing Yelena Belova, which is sort of a villain. She is another Black Widow, pretty much. She's from the same background as Natasha. She was trained in the Red Room, and of course, Florence said on the panel that she's like a sister figure to Natasha, and according to the scene, I wasn't there at Comic-Con, but the scene that they showed from the movie is that it's her and Natasha having a fight scene, and they're like sort of mimicking each other, which I'll have like a whole conversation about that in a moment. But she plays basically another Black Widow, a blonde Black Widow. Then Rachel Weisz, you may know her from The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I love those movies. She's so gorgeous. She is playing Melina. Now, I think this is a character she's playing. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But I think that's the character she's playing. Again, I'm not familiar with a lot of stuff when it comes to Black Widow's lore, just like the bare essentials, like the fact that she was trained in the Red Room. And I think even, what's his name? The guy in the beginning of Age of Ultron, Baron, that guy, he was I think he was part of that training as well, but they kind of neglected that. And of course Bucky was a part of her past too, which is a shame that they're not incorporating that, but whatever. That would have been cool if they did that. Then you have O.T. Fagbenell, I think that's his name. The only place I know him from is from The Handmaid's Tale. He played her from Red's husband, and that's the only place I know him from. So yeah, and we don't know who he's playing exactly. I think he said he used to be like her handler, and he has feelings for her or something like that. So he may be like a sort of love interest, but it might go just one way apparently, according to him. And then they showed the concept art from it. So there, right there, you can see Taskmaster as the main villain. Um, it hasn't revealed who's playing Taskmaster, but the theory is that Florence Pugh is Taskmaster because uh, his power pretty much is that he's able to sort of mimic anyone's style of fighting and sort of counteract them by fighting just like them. They the scene that they showed Florence Pugh fighting Natasha in her same style. Um, that might be an indicator that she could possibly be Taskmaster, but not. But here's the thing. So this is the theory I had. I kind of wanted to talk about it. Then I was like, it might negate some things in Endgame, so it might not be true. But then I said, you know what? I'll say it. So look at this. This is Black Widow in Infinity War. She has blonde hair. We know that Yelena has blonde hair, right? So this takes place after her solo movie. Why did she go blonde? It probably has something to do with Yelena. Now, one of my theories was that Yelena was basically being trained to replace Natasha, right? That's my theory, that she's being trained to replace Natasha. And sort of at the end of the movie, her training is completed. And not only was she trained to replace her in terms of like her skills, but her entire life, right? So there could be some sort of brainwashing thing going on where she actually replaces her completely on a cellular level. Like they probably did some face reconstruction and made her look like Natasha, and that's the Natasha we see in Infinity War and Endgame is Yelena, right? But the only reason why I'm not gonna be like super gung ho on that is that the whole death of Natasha will, if you do rewatches and knowing that that's not the real Natasha, the emotional aspect of that sacrifice is not there, right? But if Marvel is saying screw that, we don't care, we want to essentially keep Natasha as Black Widow, they could say, well, she was replaced in her movie. Like by the end of the movie, like a post-credit scene, you find out that Yelena completely replaced her, and the real Black Widow is like being held captive. So that kind of gives you leeway to bring back ScarJo for Black Widow. But if that's not the case, then I could see them actually going forward with Yelena as the new Black Widow, and Scar is kind of, retiring officially. My thing is, this is the first movie in Phase 4, right? The official first movie in Phase 4 and the official first movie in the new saga, whatever that saga is. Like Iron Man played a huge, important part in the entire Infinity Saga. So now I'm not gonna say like they're gonna do a 1-to-1 comparison, like, oh, if this is the first movie in the new saga, that means Black Widow is super important. I'm not gonna say that, but just the fact that it's the launching movie, I have to think there's something significant about this movie that makes it the launching movie, right? Like, is it ScarJo's last movie? I don't know. I think there's room for her to come back, and I think this movie is going to indicate just how she could come back. So that was Black Widow, and so that comes out on May 1st, 2020. Now the next film is Eternals, and that comes out on November 6th, 2020. This movie is directed by Chloe Zhao, again, or Chloe Zhou, I think that's how you pronounce her name, Zhao or Zhou. Another female director. Again, Marvel is diversifying this thing, and not only is diversity behind the scenes on this with Chloe as the director, but the Eternals, they're not only race bending a lot of these characters in the Eternals, but they're gender bending them as well, and I'll show you in a minute. So the first cast member I'm mentioning is Richard Madden, and of course Richard Madden, if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you remember him as Robb Stark, And of course, the tragic death at the Red Wedding. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Game of Thrones. But guess what? I'm not gonna recommend that show anymore because I'm super hurt. Go read the books. That's better. Or wait till they reboot that show, or make them into movies, whatever. But Richard Madden, he played in Game of Thrones, and what I will recommend you watch him in is The Bodyguard. That was awesome. That's on Netflix. That's a miniseries, like 6 episodes. It was brilliant. So he was in that. Now he has a huge role in Marvel as he's playing Icarus. Now I think Icarus is the main character of this. Don't quote me on it. Again, I don't know the Eternals, but like anytime anyone mentions the Eternals, Icarus is always sort of like front and center. So I think he's playing the main character in it. And the rumors is that he will be one of the first openly gay superheroes. There's another gay superhero that was confirmed by Kevin Feige that I'll mention later. But Icarus, Richard Madden plays Icarus. Then you have Camille Nanjiani. He plays Kingo. Now Camille, you know him from Silicon Valley. He also was in that movie The Big Sick and Stuber. It's a funny guy, but you never really see. I couldn't. Was like, he's in a comic book movie. Like, is he gonna be like the comic relief? But then when he showed up on the panel, I gotta say, like, he looks like he's been working out. Like he was building a body mass right there, and I was like, all right, I see you, I see what you're working with. So so that's Kingo. Then you have Lauren Ridloff. She is in The Walking Dead. She plays the deaf girl, so she will be the first, again, diversifying here. She'll be the first deaf superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the first deaf superhero that we've ever seen. And she is playing Makari. Not only this is a race bending because she's black, but she's gender bending as well because Makari is a male. And I'm not sure if he's deaf in the comic book, but if he's not, that's also sort of like another bend or spin they're putting on the character. Then we have Brian Tyree Henry. He is from Atlanta, that show from Donald Glover. That's a brilliant show, Atlanta. You should definitely check that out. But yeah, he's been doing big things in a while, and now he's basically part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's playing Phastos. Again, don't know any of these characters, what their powers are, but they look cool. I'm going to talk about what I've known so far of the Eternals and the stuff that they contributed to things that I actually know about in a few. So I'm just writing out the cast. Then you have Selma Hayek. Ooh, so gorgeous. She plays Ajak, again, race and gender bending the character. And she's the leader of the Eternals, as was announced at Comic-Con. Then you have Leah McHugh. Now she's playing, she's gender bending Sprite as well, young character. The thing is, there were rumors that it was gonna be Millie Bobby Brown that's playing that character, and it came from a big source too. I think Variety or Hollywood Reporter, one of them mentioned that Millie Bobby Brown was being cast in the Eternals, but apparently that wasn't so. Maybe it was like a last minute change, like she couldn't find time to be in a movie because, again, she has Stranger Things, and Stranger Things 4 supposed to come out, I think, even though it's not officially renewed yet. But come on, it's like Netflix's biggest show, and Stranger Things 3 was like the highest watched show in Netflix history. So yeah, they're gonna get a season 4, and maybe they couldn't work out the schedule with her. By the time this goes to shooting, maybe she has to shoot 4 or whatever. But yeah, so Leah McHugh, she's playing Sprite. Then Dongma Sok, I think that's how you say his name. He's in this movie called Train to Busan, I think, and people are telling me, you need to watch this movie, and I put it in my queue. He's playing Gilgamesh, and Apparently he's a strong dude. I mean, if you look at the picture there, he's a strong dude. And they asked him who would win in a fight between Gilgamesh and Hulk, and of course he, Dong looked around to see if Mark Ruffalo was in the audience, and when he didn't see him in the audience, he's like, oh, of course Gilgamesh. Apparently he's a strong guy. And then finally is the biggest star in the movie, Angelina Jolie. She will be playing Athena. And of course, I don't know anything about Eternals, so I can tell you what Athena is. And so this is like the concept art for the Eternals. Now, showing you the concept art, I'll tell you what I know about them. So the Eternals are a race of humans that were sort of experimented with by these Celestials. This is the concept art of these Celestials, and we've seen a couple of Celestials in the Marvel Universe in the MCU already. 3 to be exact. There's one when what's his name? The Collector was showing the Guardians how the Power Stone worked, and you saw that big dude with the Power Stone. And then you have Nowhere. He's like the sort of severed head. That's a head of a Celestial. And of course, Ego from Guardians 2, he's a Celestial. So basically what the Celestials did was they experimented with humans and sort of like gave them sort of these powers. And their task is... one of the Celestials created an experiment with another group of people, and they became deviants. So the Eternals are supposed to battle the deviants. Now, we've met a deviant before, and that's Thanos. I don't know if they're going to call Thanos a deviant in the movies, but that would be sort of like a no-brainer. Like, if you want to sort of attach people who have seen just the movies to give them an idea of what the deviants are, then you say, yeah, Thanos was a deviant, and people saw Thanos. People know Thanos right now. So yeah, just to say he's a deviant, you'll connect it to this movie. Now, another thing these Celestials are a part of is that one of them experimented on another group of humans by giving them the X gene. So this could sort of give you a sort of hint of how mutants will arrive in the MCU. Not sure how they're gonna do it, but I can't wait for Kevin Feige to sort of like bring that to fruition. Right. So that's pretty much what I know so far about the Eternals. I can't wait to see the movie. Marvel's not disappointing. Like, there's one time they disappointed me, and that's Iron Man 3, and more on that later. But for the most part, they've always sort of like, did well when it comes to their films. All right, so next up we have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This comes out fall of 2020 on Disney Plus. Now, this is very important because we saw at the end of Endgame that Falcon, he got the shield. A lot of people thought it should have been Bucky, but really Bucky has issues right now. So Falcon was the right call, all right? But I feel like this show, and I think it's going to be either 6 or 8 episodes. I wonder, and that's another thing I wonder too about these Disney Plus shows. Are they going to receive the same kind of big budget treatment as the movies, right? Like, quality wise, will they look as good as the movies? I mean, some part of me says no, but at the same time, if you look at what they have in store for the Disney Plus shows, they can't really skimp on the budget. You really have to show these things. So, but the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show and you can clearly see from the logo that the shield will play an important role. So it could have to do with both of them sort of like really looking into themselves to see if either of them are worthy of the shield, right? I have a feeling that Chris Evans will show up in this as Old Man Cap. I just feel like he'll show up. But the person that will definitely show up is so yeah, Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. They were on at Comic-Con and they had the shield, and it was a real hilarious moment where they were like, all right, no, you take the shield, nah, you take the shield. And of course Jessica Chobot took the shield. But the person that's actually coming back that was confirmed is Daniel Bruhl, and he played Baron Zemo. Well, he played Zemo in Civil War, but he will be coming back because they showed like a short video of him putting the mask on to look like the Zemo that we know, and that's an iconic shot right there, which I have a feeling that they might replicate in the movie in the series. But yeah, so he will be the main villain or a villain. Not sure if he's gonna be the main villain because he wasn't really a bad guy per se in Civil War. He was really, I mean, he was hurt by what the Avengers did, and he was like a mustache twirling sort of villain. And at the end of that movie, he kind of accomplished his goal by splitting the Avengers. But of course, the Avengers, I think if you go by what Far From Home is saying, like the Avengers are kind of done. So will he like, okay, maybe he's seeing inklings of the Avengers trying to come back, so he's trying to stop that. But last time we saw him, he was a prisoner, so he could, but then again, he could have been one of the guys that got disintegrated, sort of snapped, and then when he came back, they probably moved this prison, so he's like somewhere else, so he escaped, something like that could happen. So yeah, that's I'm not sure if there's rumor that Emily Van Camp is going to be in it as Sharon Carter, but it wasn't confirmed. So the only confirmed thing we know is Anthony Mackie, Sebastian Stan, and Daniel Bruhl will be in the show. So that is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think it will, like I said, it will deal with the whole mantle of the shield, who is worthy of it, and stuff like that. So the next film we're going to talk about is Shang-Chi. Now, it's called Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Going back to Iron Man 3, the only reason... It's a good movie. It's a well-made movie, but the reason why I was so disappointed is that with Ben Kingsley, you thought you were going to get this really dope, realistic, gritty Mandarin, right? And then, spoilers for that movie, it was revealed like, oh, the Mandarin isn't real, and it was like a fabrication by Aldrich Killian, who used it to sort of like sow seeds of war and terror and fear in Americans, so that he could sort of be sort of the de facto hero. But then they kind of retconned that with the All Hail the King one-shot short, where it was revealed that there is a real Mandarin, but that was like long time ago, and then we didn't know if we were ever going to follow up on that. But of course, if you look at the title, it says Legend of the Ten Rings. So the director of that is Destin Daniel Cretton, and also starring Awkwafina. She'll have a role. We don't know who she's playing. But then as Shang-Chi himself is Simu Liu. He's a newcomer. He auditioned on, I want to say he said he auditioned on a Tuesday. He was cast on a Sunday. And then he was there at Comic-Con or something like that. So basically he was just a week as Shang-Chi. And so he's playing the main character, of course. And Tony Leung, now he's playing the Mandarin. So the Mandarin is real. He's going to show up. So the only thing I know about Shang-Chi, I read a couple of comics where he showed up in it. The Hickman stuff, he was in Jonathan Hickman's run of the Avengers. But it never really went into his past. But, back in the day when the comic book character was created, it was supposed to be the son of Fu Manchu, and of course Fu Manchu is kind of like a racist caricature right now, and nobody wanted to use him. So, and it wasn't really a Marvel property anyway. They just got to use the character. Now, I think what they're gonna do is they're gonna sort of use Mandarin as the replacement and have him be Shang-Chi's father, um, and sort of kind of elaborate on both Shang-Chi and the Mandarin. So this movie is gonna be one of the most badass movies out there. I think it's gonna show you. Basically, this is what I wanted Iron Fist to be on Netflix. I wanted it to be a showcase of crazy martial arts, and I know that's definitely what we're gonna get. And of course, you know, Marvel and Disney is big over in China, and this movie is coming out February 21st, and I think that's Chinese New Year, so it's perfect for them to sort of launch. So I know it's gonna be big over there, but I think this movie could potentially bring back the sort of Shaw Brothers style kung fu. I know Quentin Tarantino tried to bring it back with Kill Bill, and then other films tried to duplicate that, but it just didn't work out. But hopefully this will be a second chance for that kind of like Hong Kong style kung fu film to make a return with Marvel. All right, so that's pretty much what I know about Shang-Chi. Like I said, there's a lot of properties that I really don't know about. And all the stuff that I mentioned so far doesn't really touch upon the multiverse type of stuff. But the first thing now that will deal with the multiverse thing is WandaVision. Now that's going to come out spring 2020 on Disney Plus, and this will bring back Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany as respectively Wanda and Vision. And in this, what Elizabeth said is that you'll truly see her as the Scarlet Witch. And of course, this takes place after Endgame, and spoiler alert for Infinity War, the Vision is dead. So Paul said he doesn't know how he got back alive. But here's the theory. I believe this is some reality warping ability that Wanda has from the comics that's taking place. So, before I go on to that, another character that's joining the cast is Monica Rambeau, who you know her she was a little girl in Captain Marvel. So she's fully grown now, and she's being played by Tiona Paris. She's a gorgeous sister, man. Woohoo! She played in Survivor's Remorse. That was on Stars. I don't know if you know that show. Probably no one watches that because it got canceled. And she was in a Spike Lee movie called Chirac, and she was in Dear White People, the actual movie, not the television show. But she's going to be playing adult Monica Rambeau. And Monica Rambeau actually was Captain Marvel for a little bit before Carol became Captain Marvel. Carol was Miss Marvel for a long time. So Monica Rambeau actually became Captain Marvel before in the comics. But, whatever. They'll just do... Because I think she becomes another superhero called Photon or something like that. But yeah, so she will be in... It's weird. I thought the next time you saw her would be in Captain Marvel 2. But I think there's still a chance for you to see her in Captain Marvel 2. But before that, you'll see her in WandaVision. Now, going back to my theories here. Now, Tom King wrote a comic book called Vision, which had Vision having a family. And it had like sort of this 1950s aesthetic. And that's exactly what they said they're going for with WandaVision, that it'll have sort of this... old classic sort of Leave It to Beaver type of aesthetic to it, and it's they kept saying it's one of their weirdest shows they've ever done, right? So here's what I think. She kind of warped reality to bring Vision back, to have a family with it. So she'll have 2 children, which I will I'll talk about later, but it basically she'll deal with some more sort of reality warping deal, create a whole new reality. And basically you'll have like a hint of House of M. Now, House of M was a storyline where she created a universe where mutants ruled. Now, I'm not sure they're gonna go that far with WandaVision, because this was basically being worked on before the whole Fox deal went through. So I'm not sure if they had time to even change that idea. But it could be one of those things where this will also will be a sort of platform to introduce mutants to the MCU. But who knows? Let's see. But yeah, so that's pretty much all we know so far of WandaVision. More on WandaVision. This is not the end of it, but this is you'll see how important these shows are to the MCU. So, moving on to the next Disney Plus streaming show will be Loki. That's coming out in spring of 2021. Now, Loki's dead in Infinity War, right? But this one was the easiest one to speculate for anybody who's seen Endgame, right? When they went back in time to try to get the Tesseract and they failed, Loki grabbed it and disappeared. Yes, that Loki will be the focus of that show. So pretty much all the character development that we've seen of Loki through Dark World, through Ragnarok, through Infinity War, that's gone, man. Like, now he's going to be sort of the same Loki that we saw got his ass handed to him by Hulk. He's gonna be a villain, and he's gonna be a lot more angry. So, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that character. And then now I'm wondering, will that have the possibility of bringing in Chris Hemsworth as Thor? Like, can we see cameos from that character, or even Sif? Like, we haven't seen Lady Sif in a while, man. We need to see her. Bring her. That could be a way to bring her in too. But yeah, like again, this is so WandaVision touched. I touched on the whole reality warping, so that's another alternate reality that she could potentially have created. And then Loki, that's a definite new reality. That's a reality where he never died, that all that stuff is going on. So those movies, those two shows sort of deal with a different reality, right? Now there's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and that comes out May 7th, 2021. When Mysterio mentioned in the trailer that he's from Earth 833 and this is Earth 616, a lot of us got hyped, like, holy shit, they're really doing the multiverse thing. But then the fact that it came from him, we kind of like, but he's probably lying, and it'll be disappointing if the whole multiverse thing is just a lie from him. But then Kevin Feige said, oh, even though he's lying about his version, there is actually a multiverse. And we've seen, I mentioned the two properties that will deal with some form of multiverse, and then now we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and Scott Derrickson, he's back directing this, and he said it's going to be truly the first horror Marvel movie. Now, WandaVision will directly tie into it. What happens in WandaVision will affect what happens in this movie, because Wanda herself will be making appearance in this movie, which a lot of us fans was hoping for anyway, especially people who were a fan of House of M, because during that whole story, before she kicked off that whole reality, she was basically being trained sort of by Doctor Strange, because she has like these hex powers, reality altering powers, which is considered magic. So Doctor Strange kind of like had to give her some sort of training. So we could definitely see something in this movie where he's training her, and she just like goes haywire and creates like a whole crazy multiverse and introduce all these scary elements from different universes into our reality, or maybe they have to go to different realities to stop whatever threat is coming to ours. So that'll definitely be a cool thing to watch out for. And then of course this bad guy I don't necessarily know about, but I've heard about him. But a lot of people assume because this is going to be a scary movie that the villain would be Nightmare. Not a lot of info on this guy in terms of what I know about him, but looking at the character, you can definitely see how he could possibly be a villain for this. But then when you go back and you think, okay, so what about Baron Mordor, or Mordor, his name was, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. It wasn't confirmed if he was back, but last time we saw, he was killing off a bunch of sorcerers, and so he could potentially come back to. I don't know how you would fit into this new plot, but I'm sure they'll figure out something. All right, so the next property is also a multiverse type of thing, and it's called What If, and it's going to be the MCU's first animated series on Disney Plus, and that will be in the summer of 2021. Now, if you are familiar with the What If comics, then you know it's basically What If, in terms of what if a radioactive spider bit Harry Osborn instead of Peter Parker, or what if Gwen Stacy never died, or basically just like a what if storyline. You sky's the limit on what you could do with What If. Now, the reason I say this could hint at the whole multiverse theory is that Jeffrey Wright is announced as the Watcher, right? And the Watcher basically is this entity that just watches the universe. And not only does he watch, sometimes he intervenes when there's something significant happens, and he basically lives on the moon and stuff like that. But what he will appear to actual humans when there's something significant that's about to happen, like major storylines. Like one of the storylines that he appeared in was the Dark Phoenix saga, Age of Apocalypse, Onslaught. I think when else did he appear? I want to say Fear Itself. I think he showed up on Fear Itself. But yeah, anytime something major is about to go down, he always shows up to, it was like Marvel's way of like showing. It was kind of a cheap way for Marvel to say, oh, this event that we're about to do is important because he shows up. It was like, it was cool the first couple of times, but then it just got like, it became cheap because it's like Marvel's way of just saying, hey, this storyline is important. He showed up. But one of the other things he can do is basically look through different realities as well, right? And he will be basically the narrator of the show, and one of the things that one episode will show what if Peggy Carter became Captain America instead of Steve Rogers. Now, the reason, most of the cast of the MCU are coming back. If you look at this picture right here, like, Chris Hemsworth is coming back, Haley Atwell, Michael B. Jordan, Chadwick Boseman, and it's funny enough, they showed the screen for a short time, and you saw Natalie Portman there, but they didn't show it long enough for you to notice, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, so I think all these realities that you'll see in the What If series will be a potential reality that could be revisited going forward in the saga. And I think by the end of this whole multiverse saga, all these alternate realities that you've seen throughout the entire entirety of these movies, you'll see parts of them. And like I said, so these four properties that are going, that I talked about: WandaVision, Loki, Doctor Strange, What If, and these are the exact order that they were announced. That's because I think they really deal with the whole multiverse thing, right? So that's the What If, and I'm excited about that. So then, moving on, now we have another Disney Plus show. This was rumored but not confirmed, but now it's finally confirmed. We have Hawkeye on the fall of 2021. Now, a lot of us wanted a Hawkeye movie for a long time. Reason being is that Matt Fraction wrote a run of Hawkeye that was critically acclaimed, where you saw Hawkeye in the suburb, in the urban, I think New York or something like that, in an apartment building, and he's basically training, what's her name, Kate Bishop. So we all wanted that. So based on the logo and the fact that Renner is back again, and they showed like a concept art of Kate Bishop, this is definitely the one. And of course, Jeremy Renner confirmed that this one deals with him training Kate Bishop to be a better version of Hawkeye than him. So they also mentioned that the show will deal with his time as Ronin during the 5 years in Endgame when he was Ronin. And so and it's a funny thing, right? I was thinking how if they ever did a Hawkeye show, this is before they confirmed it, but they said there was rumors about a Hawkeye show. I was like, all right, I believe they'll definitely have some elements of Matt Fraction's run, but they'll also deal with the consequences of him being Ronin. And I could see it that he had to leave his family, right? Because his family came back in Endgame, right? But before that, he was basically killing a bunch of cartels, a bunch of Yakuzas, a bunch of Triad members. He was slaughtering a bunch of gang members as Ronin. And I think that's going to come back to haunt him, right? Where the survivors of whoever he killed will come back and say, we need to find that guy who was Ronin and kill him. And like, I have a feeling like, right, when the show starts, he'll be in the city living by himself, and you're like, why is he living by himself? And you see like a picture of his family, and you're like, oh my god, did something happen to his family? But I believe he left them to keep them safe, and in order to get back to them and leave someone with the sort of knowledge that he has as Hawkeye, like, he'll probably be hunting down the people who are trying to kill him, but at the same time he wants to leave a legacy, so he'll be training Kate Bishop. And the thing about Kate Bishop, she's a cool character. She's an awesome character. She's like this rich socialite from I think San Diego or San Francisco or whatever, and she was a fan of Hawkeye. And then in the comics, Hawkeye was dead at the time when she took up the mantle of Hawkeye, and she's like, okay, Hawkeye's dead, so I'll just be the new Hawkeye. So I think the show will touch on a little bit of that. Now, I want to mention the Young Avengers. Now, I've mentioned WandaVision, and I've mentioned Hawkeye, right? And one of the things that they both have in common is that they have the potential to introduce 3 members of the Young Avengers, right? We already have so far. If those 3 are in existence, right, we have the potential to do Young Avengers. So you have Wiccan and Speed. They're the children of Wanda and Vision. Now, they were created through spells and stuff like that, but they're pretty much their children, right? And they kind of mimic, like, Speed, basically is like a version of Quicksilver, her brother, and Wiccan is a version of her, right? He has powers, magic, and stuff like that. Then you have Kate Bishop, and then you have Cassie Lang, who is now a teenager at the end of Endgame, who is the daughter of Scott Lang. So you have 4 of those members, right? And then Prodigy, what's his name? Ryan Coogler wanted to introduce Prodigy in Black Panther, but things didn't work out. But the mere fact that they had him on their minds, you could even come back for Black Panther 2, and then you would have your 5th member, right? And then of course Hulkling, he turned out to be a Skrull. We have Skrulls in the MCU already, so I think they're heading towards the Young Avengers. Either it's going to be a movie in Phase 5 or a series, we don't know, but we have the ingredients so far for a Young Avengers movie or television show. All right, so that was Hawkeye. Now the final thing that they introduced, well, it wasn't the final thing, but it's the final movie of Phase 4, is Thor: Love and Thunder. And you can see by the title, Taika Waititi's back, right? Ragnarok had sort of the same 80s treatment. rock heavy metal treatment as well. And so this one is keeping up with that, and it looks like it's going to be also a love story as well. So the cast has returned. You know, you have Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. She's returning as Valkyrie, and then Natalie Portman. Big shocker, she's also coming back. Now the whole Natalie Portman debacle happened when she was upset that Patty Jenkins, the director of Wonder Woman, she was supposed to direct The Dark World, but this is when the movies were under Ike Perlmutter, where Kevin Feige had to answer to Ike, and you had a whole big deal with Patty Jenkins. Her version of what she wanted to do with Thor didn't match up with Ike, and so like they had her replaced, and Natalie Portman was so upset with that she just said, you know what, after this movie, I'm done. I don't want to come back to this whole thing. But she came back for a small role in Endgame, but I think she came back because, you know, the whole Civil War and the split between Marvel Studios and Marvel Television, or Marvel as a whole, like gave Marvel so much freedom that it gave a lot of actors who were disillusioned by their work with under the whole Ike Perlmutter regime, you know, now they can flex their creative muscle. And I think that gave her sort of like, oh, you know what, I guess I could come back, because it looks like it's a different role we're talking about here. So yeah, she's back, and she's back as Lady Thor, right? Like, boom. Like, what's his name? Taika Waititi said while he was doing Ragnarok, he was reading Jason Aaron run on Thor, which introduced us to Lady Thor, which is Jane Foster. So she'll be playing Lady Thor. Now, I mentioned above at the start of this where Richard Madden could possibly be playing one of the first gay superheroes, but Kevin Feige confirmed that Tessa Thompson will be playing a Valkyrie as gay, because she pretty much said she's now the king of Asgard, right? And they asked what was the first thing she's gonna be do as king, and she's like, okay, the first thing I gotta do is find myself a queen. So that, you know, was a hint that she's gay, she's playing gay, and of course Ken Feige confirmed that. So will it be will it be a love triangle between her, Jane Foster, her and Thor? We don't know. Yeah, one of the things that they were hinting at earlier was that she and Captain Marvel could potentially have a relationship with one another, but I don't know if Captain Marvel will be showing up in this movie. You know, she's too powerful. We have to see a sequel for her to kind of establish her in this new MCU before we bring her in as a supporting character, because she's too powerful. Now, the thing that I'm wondering about when it comes to Love and Thunder, so Guardians, at the end of Endgame, you saw Thor leaving with the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was actually supposed to be the first movie in Phase 4, sorry. But James Gunn got fired because of old tweets, and you know, they had to put the movie on hold. And of course, he went on to work with Warner Brothers on the Suicide Squad, but then they rehired him. So, but he already wrote the script for Guardians, and the way and he's a producer on Endgame, and he helped craft a story for both Infinity War and Endgame. So obviously he knew that Thor would be with the Guardians at the end of that movie. So does his script reflect that? Now, if his script reflect that, and his movies and Guardians is coming after Thor, how does that tie in? Like, when Thor starts, will he be a part of the Guardians? And will he have to do a rewrite? You know what I mean? Like, by the time that movie starts, he's gone? Or was he just gonna play a small role anyway? Like, all these questions, you know, it's blowing my mind. But, you know, we have 2 years to find that out, but I'm super excited for Thor: Love and Thunder, and I can't wait. So just before, so that's Phase 4. If you can look at it, look at the lineup that they have. So before Kevin left, he kind of just like name dropped a bunch of stuff that they're working on as well. He was like, "Oh yeah, we didn't have time to talk about uh, Black Panther 2. We didn't have time to talk about Captain Marvel 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3." But then he just dropped like, "We didn't have time to talk about Fantastic Four." It was like, so that was like his first big confirmation that they're working on Fantastic Four. And then he didn't have time to talk about the mutants, another big confirmation that they're introducing mutants to the MCU. But then he did mention one thing that they're working on, and that's Blade. Now, Blade will be played by Mahershala Ali. I'm a little bit conflicted on that because, you know, I love me some Wesley Snipes. I was really looking forward to Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade, and the fact that he said he was talking with Marvel and they had a lot of things planned, I was like, oh man, maybe those plans fell through, or maybe maybe because it's just an early development, maybe he's still a part of it. Maybe he is Blade, but Mahershala Ali is playing like a different Blade or a Blade. I don't know, but or maybe Wesley Snipes is playing a different character, you know. But I don't know. It just felt like a little bit of sting, like just like smack you in the face, like no, you're not Blade. Or maybe he's you know, he's 54, 56, 54, 56, maybe because he's too old. Mahershala Ali, he's 45, so he's not like a spring chicken either. But the thing that Wesley Snipes brought to it is that he's a real martial artist. He's an actor and a martial artist. And that's something that Mahershala Ali has to learn. Is like he would have to learn some combat. But here's the bigger question now. The first 3 Blade movies were rated R. Like, they are rated R movies. Like, blood, guts, cursing, some nudity. It is a badass movie. The MCU is predominantly a PG-13 affair. Are we gonna get a PG-13 Blade? Will the PG-13 Blade work? Because as a matter of fact, when they mentioned Doctor Strange as their first true venture into horror, someone shouted in the crowd, "Oh, rated R!" And Kevin was like, "Oh no, it's PG-13, and you're gonna like it, right?" He's like, he was basically like shooting down the whole, no, we're doing PG-13 here. But are we getting an R-rated Blade? Like, you have to do Blade R-rated. You can't do a PG-13 Blade. I mean, you can, because when he kills the vampires, they just like disintegrate into ash, right? So you don't necessarily have to show blood and guts, but like there is blood and guts in the Blade movies, and it'll just feel like a neutered version of it. But that's like a question that I have, but it's confirmed that Blade is not a part of Phase 4, so this is going to be a part of Phase 5. But why mention it now? I mean, I guess you want to sort of like get people hyped about Blade, because Phase 4 is only going to be 2 years, so right around the corner we'll be starting Phase 5 already, right? So you kind of wanted to get a head start on some of the stuff that's happening in Phase 5. But I have a theory of why it was mentioned so early too. With Doctor Strange sort of venturing into horror territory, and you'll have demons and stuff, I think you'll see some vampires as well, and I think Blade will be introduced in Doctor Strange, right? That's my big theory, is that Blade will actually appear in Doctor Strange first before he gets his solo movie, and this will give you a taste of what Mahershala Ali brings to the table as Blade. That's just my theory. It could be just wrong, but that's my theory of why they announced the character so early on when he's not a part of Phase 4. So that will bring me to the end of the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. You can send your email in at thepgshow@popculturegalaxy.com if you have any questions, if you want to mention anything about what we discuss here, and a lot of stuff. Anything you want to discuss, just email in at the PG Show at popculturegalaxy.com. And of course, hit that subscribe button. I want to get up there to 1,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of all the stuff that we've talked about, all of Phase 4. Are you excited, or you're not excited, or you're cautiously optimistic? Let me know down below. And give that thumbs up and that notification bell a ring, right? So that brings us to the end. So until next time, folks, I want to say peace.